Hello, good morning, everyone, and good to see a lot of participants once again. This is Kazi from SIMFOTIX Training, and today I have with me Mr. Hassan, who is our expert trainer for writing with impact, draft, striking business emails. So, thank you, Hassan, for joining this morning.
Thank you. Let's just officially beginning the session then.
Great. This is our ninth session in the row, and starting from the webinar series, which we started with MS Excel, we have done on financial modeling, we have done on leadership and HR and different topics, including this email business writing skills, because this is one of the topics which people need a lot, especially when they are operating from home, and communication is of utmost importance when you cannot see the expressions on someone's face and you only have to judge everything with the written words and expressions. So I will pass it over to Hassan to begin the session. We will take the question and answers on different slides. So we will not take any formal break in the session, but at the end of the session, we will open the floor for questions. So you can ask a lot of things and questions which are not clear to you. This is all from my side. Thank you. Over to you, Hassan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ghazi. Good morning, everyone. I officially welcome you all into this webinar, Write with Impact, Draft Striking Business Emails. I'm Hassan Siddiqui, and I'm the course facilitator for the session. Before I proceed to the main content, I'm just going to briefly introduce you to myself. I'm associated with learning and development for the past 7 years. I am also a published co-author of a book that has been featured by the KPI Institute in their annual publication as 2019 Smart Street. Apart from that, I have experience of being a communication strategist. I have helped various local and international clients to communicate with their audience in a better way. Now, as Mr. Kazi has just mentioned, I'm just going to quickly point out 4 of the things that I have in mind. Number 1, I would request you to please keep your mic mute during the session. Number 2, there will be Q&A in the middle and at the end, as Mr. Kazi has said. I will be taking the questions whenever I'm going to introduce any new concept. After when we have concluded that, we will be discussing the Q&A. Number 3, the way to ask questions is that you can raise a hand. There's an option to raise hands, and then after when you have raised hands, someone from my team will note your name and then give you the opportunity to ask questions on the basis of first come and first serve. Lastly, all the content, all the presentation will be sent to you after when we have finished the entire session. We will be sending you the presentation. Now let's just talk about what topics are supposed to be covered today. Number 1, we are going to talk about reader psychology. We are going to discuss what are the set of expectations that a reader has in his mind when it comes to our email communication. Number 2 is when we will be talking about there are certain routine mistakes that we all do. We will be talking about those routine mistakes in email communication, and then we will be discussing some tips through which we can overcome those mistakes. Then we will be discussing different email situations. There are typically 4 email situations, and then we will be discussing different strategies through which we can overcome those email situations. Number 4, finally, we will be discussing frameworks of writing. There are certain frameworks which govern the entire writing phenomena. There are certain principles that govern the entire writing phenomena. We will be discussing them. At the last, since we all are working from home due to COVID situation, I am going to discuss some of the ways through which you can effectively dedicate the task to your colleagues and then your subordinates. So these are the topics that are going to be covered. Now, before we jump to the main content which we have discussed in the agenda, I'm just going to put forward a couple of case studies in front of you. These case studies are going to highlight how small mistakes that we make in our communication can actually lead to a disastrous situation. First case study that I'm going to put forward is of Spirit Airlines. It is United States, one of the famous airlines in the United States. There was an issue in 2009. I'm just putting it on your screen, and I would request you to please give you a couple of minutes and then read it out, and then we will discuss what went wrong. Once you're done, just write done, and then I'll be asking a couple of questions from you. Just let me know when you're done. Just write in the chat box that you're done, and then I will be asking a couple of questions. Okay, I guess most of you have done reading it. Just tell me, what are the two mistakes you think the sender, the CEO has made in this case? There's one very most obvious mistake, but there's another. So can we just have a when we just have a quick brainstorm? What are the two mistakes that the CEO has made in this case? Just write in the chat box. Okay, so I have just opened the chat box for everyone. So just write your answer on the chat box. Great. Some of you have pointed out that he has made mistake in saying some harsh words, and he has hit the reply all button. But Isam El Sheikh, who has rightly pointed out one thing, that number one, he should not have hit the reply all button. Number two, there should not be any negative statement which you are going to send as an email. Even if he hasn't haven't hit the reply all button, emails are on the verge to get hacked, and you should never document anything which can bring bad reputation to the company. So these are the two reasons why these are the two main mistakes which the CEO has made throughout the case. Now let's just discuss another case. This case is from Pakistan. It's about a startup company. Let's just see what has gone wrong. Just take out a couple of minutes and read it again. Once done, just write in the chat box that you are done with that. So I'm just going to just give you the gist of the matter. There was a social entrepreneur in Pakistan who happened to have an exciting idea of his healthcare startup. He met an angel investor. He wanted to have a deal with him, and the angel investor has asked him to send him a proposal through a cover email, and along with the proposal, he sent an entire email with just one mistake, and the mistake was having his name misspelled. So because of that, his entire deal was off. The reason why I put these two case studies in front of you is to just highlight how small mistakes can be a big disaster for everyone. Now let's just move forward to the main content of the agenda. Let's just first talk about reader psychology. Number one, we should keep in mind that our readers are mostly time pressed. They are rushing from one task to the another. So we have to be very brief in our emails, and we just need to keep ourselves very focused towards what our readers want to read. Number two, if you don't get to the point soon, they will ignore you. You need to rush out to your main message as soon as possible, because if you are going to write a long email, they will ignore you. Number three, if they are going to struggle, if they are going to make any struggle to understand what you have written, if you are going to use any hard word or complex jargon, there will be two outcomes of it. Number one, they will try not to read your email at all, or even worse, they will make interpretational mistakes. Lastly, but not least, there should be shorter emails, because when reader receives a shorter email, he has the tendency to reply that email faster. And everyone wants a faster response. So we just need to keep in our mind that we have to keep our emails shorter. Now, I understand that there are certain situations where you cannot keep our emails short, but again, you have this objective in mind that whenever you're going to write, you just have to be very, very specific what you're going to write. Let's just talk about some routine mistakes. There are few mistakes that we all make. Number one, unclear subject lines. Number two, wrong name of the recipient. We have seen the case of Usman, where he has just misspelled the name of an engine investor. Number three, being verbose. Some people confuse being detail oriented with being verbose. They make mistake when they are writing. They think that they are being detail oriented, but they end up being verbose. Number four, wrong recipients. We have seen the case of our CEO from the Spirit Airlines. He happened to hit the reply all button, and sometimes we just copy someone who has a similar domain. So we always make this mistake of having a wrong recipient in the email. Number five, happened to all of us. I think I know most of the people who make this mistake. They happen to write that they are making any attachment in the email, but they forgot to make it. So they forgot to enclose any of the attachments. The last, using difficult words or jargons, using words that are hard for the people to understand. So if I may just ask you, what is the disadvantages of using the hard word or jargons? Can you just quickly write on the chat what are the disadvantages of using the hard words? Yes, Manilal, you have pointed out well. Mail content should be in brief and understandable, right? Okay, Isam El Sheikh has said that it can lead to misinterpretation. The other answer which I have received is that to show the good English knowledge. Abid Ikram has said other may not understand what you want to convey. Soita has said reader might not be comfortable when they don't understand. Iman Al-Madni has said not all the audience know difficult words. Soita has said not to offend the reader. And Dilshani Silva has said they might not understand the exact meaning what we are trying to say. Yes, most of you are right. Number one, if you are going to use such words which a reader might think that you are using complex or using hard word, it will be hard for him to understand. And since it's going to be hard for him to understand, he will feel low of him, and nobody wants to feel low. It can lead to an offensive situation. The reader can be offended. And someone also pointed out that such situation can lead to misinterpretation as well. So we should avoid using jargon or using jargons and difficult words for the situation. Now, moving forward, let's just discuss some of the tips through which we can overcome these mistakes. Number one, as far as subject line is concerned, we should keep the subject line shorter than 5 to 7 words. We should just keep them to 5 and 7 words. Why? Because the subject line longevity affects the message interpretation, the message you want to convey. So subject line should be shorter. And if we are talking about internal communication, we can always add a prefix in the beginning of our subject line. For example, if we are going to dedicate a task to our subordinate or to our colleague, we can use action in bracket, and then we can start the subject line. Similarly, if there's a situation where just forwarding an email for the information purpose, we can just write FYI in bracket, and then we can move forward to the main subject line. Again, if there's any email that does not require any further discussion, we can just write in the bracket end of discussion, and then we can proceed with the remaining subject line content. Secondly, just to avoid being verbose, we should keep in mind that our sentences should not be longer than 15 to 20 words. 15 to 20 words are basically the limit which our mind can actually process words together. If you are going to violate it, it will be very hard for a participant or for a recipient to read it and understand it in one go. Similarly, we should avoid being using a paragraph which is longer than 4 to 5 lines. When you send someone an email and it has a long passage, it actually affects his mind. It gives him a stress. So when you are sending an email and this gives the reader a stressful situation, he would avoid to read that. And sometimes when we write a long email, it dilutes the message of the email. Number four, one of the mistakes which I have not highlighted, but people make that mistake, they use passive sentences. For example, they think if they are using passive sentences, they are being more professional. But this actually extracts out all the human touch in your email. You sounds very robotic when you use passive sentences. So unless it is very, very necessary to use the passive sentences, do not use it. Number five, we have seen the situation in the Spirit Airways case. The we hit the reply all button. The CEO write the email and then hit the send button. To avoid such situation, we should remove all the recipients first and add those recipients at the end of drafting an entire email. This will help you overcome any of the situation where you are adding someone who's not supposed to be in that email. To avoid the situation where attachment or enclose where we forget to attach any file, whenever you are writing, just red mark the word attachment or enclose, and once you are done with the writing an entire email, just first enclose that attachment and then change the color back to normal. Last but not least, if there's an email and you think you can you can send that email after some delay, you can just take a 5-minute walk, just come back or do something else, see your email again and see it with the reader's perspective, just to avoid any typo or any situation. Now, let's just move towards email situation. But before that, let's just have your questions, some of the some of the ideas that you have in mind regarding these tips. If you want to if you want to add something or you want to suggest something here. Okay, Iman has asked, what does passive sentence mean? Passive sentence mean when you're writing something like, I have done this work, and you just make it passive. This work has been done by me. So this is one of the example how passive sentence sound. For example, chairman has delayed the meeting, and if you want to make it passive, you will write the meeting has been delayed by the chairman. So this is the example of being using a passive sentence. I hope, Iman, I have answered your question. Now, if you want to add something or you want to discuss something regarding the tips, you can write in the chat box. Otherwise, just write done or um, just write something so that I move forward. Okay, so I'm just now moving forward. So there are different email situations. There are 4 kind of different email situations, and now I'm going to highlight them. Number 1, the first email situation is good news. When you get promoted or you receive an increment or your vacations get approved or you have any project success, any such email that you are sending to any recipient, it will come into the good news situation. Now, apart then good news, what can be the other different email situations? If you can just write in the chat box, what you think can be other email situations which can be put here. Okay, Hamda has said holidays. Holidays is part of the good news. Eid holiday, yes, it can be a good news. Public holiday announcement can be a good news, yes. Rewards, again, rewards can be a good news. Now, there are certain other email situations as well. For example, routine or neutral information, where you are communicating any change in policy. You are going to talk about any routine updates, information sharing, reports and finding. All these fall into the category of neutral or routine information. Then we have bad news. Any news that involves any heartbreak to the reader, for example, job termination, rejection of vacations, project failure, etc. These come under the heading of bad news. Last but not least, persuasive emails. There are certain emails which you write to persuade the audience, for example, budget expansion, business proposal, or negotiatory emails. These emails fall into the persuasive email situation. Now, this is another fifth kind, which I'm not going to discuss in detail because I think this should not be the part either. There's another kind which is called argumentative or retaliatory email. When you try to write an email with some offensive word, with some offensive tone, to threaten or to bring certain thing into the mind of the reader. So this is the fifth email situation, but I think such emails should not be the part of your routine emails. You should never write someone in a retaliatory manner or in an offensive manner. So I'm not going to include it in the email situations. Now, let's just talk about different email strategies. What strategies can help you tackle these situations? Number one, let's just talk about direct strategy. Direct strategy is a situation when you want to reach out the crux of the matter in the very beginning of the email, either in the subject line or in the very first line of the email, in the very first line in the body. You just try to convey the message of your email. Where this situation is used, this situation is used when you are either delivering a good news or you are delivering any neutral information, any crucial information that a reader must know in the very beginning. The purpose to obviously the purpose to send this email is to let the reader know what's more important in the very beginning. This also improves your goodwill as well. Now, if you can just take a couple of minutes and write what can be the opposite of direct strategy and where we can use it. While writing anything on the chat box, you can just click to everyone instead of just sending the answer to me privately. So it will help the participant to understand what you are saying, and it will help exchange the ideas. Okay, Wasim Mushtaq, you have asked any kind of complaint or emergency issue mail will come in, and in which kind of category? Sweta has said opposite of direct strategy used for bad news ease the reader into bad information. Yes, Sweta, you are almost close to the answer. There's another kind of strategy which is called indirect strategy, where we purposefully try to delay the message of the message of our email. We try to lead the reader to read far more than just one line or two line. We just want them to have the context of the email first, and then we try to deliver any news and when we use such direct indirect strategy, when we are going to deliver any persuasive email or any bad news, we just try to delay the message of the email and then we try to deliver any news for example, Yeah, hi. I think I just lost the connection. Can you people hear me now? Okay. That's nice. So let's just move towards the indirect strategy. I discussed what indirect strategy is. We use indirect strategy to to delay the message. We use this strategy for the persuasive emails or bad news. The reason is to make the reader to go beyond first line and know the context of why the news is being delivered as much as possible. I just wanted to talk about an persuasive email example. I received an email from UNICEF a couple of days ago. They wanted to have a donation, but since it was a good example of persuasive email, they had a very good catchy subject line. They said, "You can save 20,000 people from dying." They wanted to have donation in the body of their email, but the way they wrote the subject line, it actually attracted me. So so they used indirect strategy, and that was one of the most amazing example that I have seen about indirect usage of indirect strategy. Now let's just see one example of how we can deliver bad news into in a good context. Now we have this example. I want you to read out and let me know what kind of email situation it is and what strategy is used here. You need to identify the email situation, and then you have to identify what kind of strategy has been used here. Okay, Abid Ikram has said it's an indirect news and indirect strategy used, and it's a bad news. Sohita has said it's an indirect strategy. Sohita and Abid, this email is actually direct strategy. Why? Because if you can read the subject line, it says reduction in salaries due to COVID-19. It clearly gives the impression that it is going to be a negative news, and they just use a direct strategy to deliver that news. What can be an indirect strategy and how you can make this news neutral? I'm just going to share another example to you. Now the same example with different method and different methodology and different strategy used here. So just read it out again. Now, see the subject line, it mentions change instead of the word reduction. So it gives the hint that something is coming in terms of salaries structure, but it clearly doesn't say reduction here. Now, if I can just read it for you. Dear Jazeb, as you are well aware that COVID situation has taken the world by storm, majority of the businesses are going through severe losses and are on the verge of collapse. If we talk about our industry, majority of the companies in it has gone through a major downsizing and reduced their manpower by up to 70%. The good news is that the management, despite the industry norm, has very kindly decided not to cut dry any of our company's employee amid such dire situations. They have decided to retain all the employees. However, amid such scenario, it is very unclear how long the entire situation of nearly zero profitability will persist. Because of the dire economic situation, it is becoming harder for the company to sustain itself with high administrative costs, including the payroll. Therefore, the management has decided to make a reduction in the salary. In your case, the reduction is of 25% from your net salary. We know that it's still not a very good news, but but for the sake of long-term stability of the company, we had to take this painful step. We hope to have your cooperation in the uncertain times. Now, if you can see, the sender has tried to first portray the situation, a horrible situation of the industry. Then he talked about how kind the management is, and tried to put it in a good news that they have decided to sustain all the employees. And then in the second paragraph, they have communicated what is wrong, what is the negative part here. So if the news is if the example is clear, I'm just going to move forward. Now let's just talk about framework of writing. There are 5 framework of writing which govern the which govern the exactly how you should write. What are the principles through which you can effectively improve your writing? Coherence, cohesion, tone, temperature, and complexity. These are the 5 elements. Let's just talk about 2 of them first. And I'm going to ask you, I will request you to, if you can tell me what does coherence and cohesion means in your opinion. If you can just try to answer it through chat box, or if you would like to raise your hands and then want to answer it through the audio, you can do that as well. Will anyone would like to answer the question? I guess no hands have been raised. Let me just then quickly talk about it. Coherence refers to the logical structure of the correspondence, which means that if you are going to write any email, it has to have a logical order. For example, if you are going to talk about any situation, let's just say you are talking about any problem that has arisen in the company. First, you are going to talk about talk something about their problem. You are going to identify that problem. In the second paragraph, you are going to talk about the solution that it has, and the third paragraph has to include the conclusive remarks. So there has to be a logical order for the reader to understand what you are trying to say. It can also be said as if you are making a home, it refers to an structure of a home. Similarly, it refers to the structure of an entire email. As opposed to it, there's a concept called cohesion. This refers to the sequential connection at the sentence level. When you are connecting two different ideas, two different sentences with each other, either identical or unidentical, you use different cohesive devices. For example, if you are talking about any topics that are any two sentences that are contrary to each other, you will be using the word such as, first you are going to write one sentence and then after full stop you will be writing as opposed to, on contrary to that. These are the examples of using cohesive devices. If there's something, if I further explain, you can also write words such as however. And if there's any idea, any sentence that actually complement the previous one, you write words such as furthermore, in addition to that. So these are the examples of using cohesive devices. So coherence refers to the logical structure of the correspondence at the idea level, while cohesion refers to the connection at the sequential level or the sentence level. Now let's just see one of an example. One is the bad usage of coherence and cohesion, and the other is the right usage. Just first read first and then read the second one. Let me just read it for you. First example says, credit cards are convenient. They are helpful in making purchases such as cars, kitchen appliances, etc. that you may need without delay, but if you are not careful, credit card can quickly break the bank and leave you in a very dire economic circumstances. Because this convenience comes at a high price interest rate, people often get them to make large purchases easily without saving up money in advance. But the more money you put on your credit card, the more the bank or credit union will charge you for the convenience. Now, if you can read, the reader cannot actually understand what is being discussed. The ideas are jumping from one to another, positive to negative, negative to positive. On the other hand, there's an example of better cohesion and coherence. This reads out like this. Credit cards are convenient but dangerous. People often get them in order to make large purchases easily without saving up lots of money in advance. This is especially helpful for purchases like cars, kitchen appliances, etc., that you may need in order to you may need to get without delay. However, this convenience comes at a high price interest rate. The more money you put on your credit card, the more the bank or credit union will charge you for that convenience. To conclude, Credit card is beneficial if you're not if you're not being careful. Credit card debt can quickly break the bank and leave you in a very dire economic situation. Now, if you can see, the second example has perfect order. It has different paragraphs. First paragraph is giving the overall idea. The second paragraph is actually giving you the highlighting the benefits. The third paragraph is talking about disadvantages, and the last paragraph is talking about the conclusion. Here you can see usage of cohesive devices as well. If I can just quickly point this out, can you see the laser point on the slide? Okay, so you can see the word however to conclude is a good example of usage of cohesive devices. After this session, I will be sending you a complete list of how you can use the cohesive devices in a better way. All right, so it is just to give you the flavor what is coherence and what is cohesion. Now let's just move forward. Let's talk about tone. Tone refers to the degree of formality of words used in correspondence. For example, whether we are being formal or we are being informal. For example, there's an email. The subject line reads out something like this: problem in the project file. The email body reads out like, Ali, I got your last email. Not sure what you are trying to say. Let me see what I can do to fix it. You see, there are certain words which are used, which are the example of informal tone. For example, got, not sure, let me see. On the other hand, if we talk about making it more formal, the example can also be like this. Dear Ali, I received your last email. I think some of the points aren't very clear to understand. However, I will try to resolve this problem. Now you can see there are certain words which are replaced. Got has been replaced with the word received. Not sure has been received with the word I think some of the points. Let me see has been replaced with the word try to resolve the problem. So this is one of the example how you can achieve formal tone from being informal. If you would like to ask anything, if you would like to discuss anything about this example, or if you want me to be very clear about certain things, just write in the chat box and I will answer your question. Manilal says the cohesion gives more clarity and can be better analyzed. Yes, Manilal, it can give more clarity. This is where we use cohesive devices to be more clear. Am I clear so far regarding this tone, or you want me to further explain? If not, just write this is good or go. I will just move forward. Okay, now let's just move forward. Temperature. Temperature refers to the degree of the severity of words used in the correspondence. Degree such as there can be two kinds of temperature. One is temperature of temperature of water, and second is temperature of soil. Hi, sorry, internet was broke off. Can you hear me now? Can you see the screen as well? Okay, I will try to speak loud. Angie, I will try to speak loud. All right. So temperature refers to the severity of words used in any correspondence. You can either use words that can scare people out, or you can use words that can actually put people to ease. Now let's just see an example. For example, a CEO is writing to his team. He says, the subject line says, "We are a sinking ship. Dear all, anyone who hasn't put their head in the sand lately knows that about a big problem we are having in the marketplace. Taking aim at the weaker items in our product line, a horde of well-trained competitors is inflicting mortal wounds. As a result, we are hemorrhaging revenues. How do we staunch bleeding? Dump our weakest products and channel our energy into stronger ones. That means we must pound out a powerful marketing plan to drive home the advantages of our products. We must brainstorm as soon as possible to come up with a strategy that has teeth. If we fumble this one, we all may be in a situation of being at this. We all may soon be standing on this unemployment line. Now there are kind of phrases and there are kind of words that actually scare people out. That makes the words sound warm. For example, the subject line itself says we are a sinking ship. This gives a very negative, very scary picture. Then there's a word, a very offensive phrase such as head in the sand. A horde of well-trained competitors. It gives the impression that they are very well experienced, very well specialized in their domain. Then inflicting mortal wounds. So another word such as staunch bleeding. Then the word such as strategy that has teeth. And at the end, unemployment line. So all these words and phrases all together give a very warm, very scary picture. Now let's just talk about the same situation in a way that we have some better words that does not scare you out. The subject line says straight decline in profits. They are all, by now, most of us are probably aware that probably aware of the critical challenges we are focusing in the marketplace. Competitors are cutting into our market share and diminishing our revenues. The only solution may be to forego some of our less successful products so that we may concentrate on the most successful ones. To do this, we would have to streamline our marketing efforts to communicate value to customers. This will require planning sessions to develop an effective strategy. I recommend that we proceed with all deliberate speed to develop a viable approach. The consequences of failing to move quickly and incisively could indeed be dire. Now, instead of using the words such as sinking ship, the subject line says straight decline in profits. It is still a bit scary, but at least not as scary as the previous subject line. Now, instead of using words such as head in the sand, the writer has used the word probably aware. Instead of using the words such as horde of well-trained competitors, he has simply used a word such as competitors. So you can see different words being used in place of the words that were being used previously. That eases out the reader. That actually does not scare the reader out. Am I clear to the example? If yes, just write clear or okay, or if you have any questions, just please ask about it. Okay, and let me just quickly move towards the next framework of writing. Complexity. Complexity refers to the degree of refers to the degree of complexity used in words and sentences. You can be complex in the sense of words, and you can be complex in the sense of sentences as well. Let me just quickly show you the example of how you can be complex with using different words. If you can see, there are certain words which can easily be replaced with the another. For example, assistance can be replaced with the word help. Numerous can be replaced with the word many. Facilitate can be used with the word easy. Remainder can be can be replaced with the word rest. Initial can be replaced with the word first. Implement can be replaced with the word do. Sufficient can be replaced with the word enough. Attempt can be replaced with try. Referred to as can be called just simply called. Now there are certain phrases which we can exclude, and we can use a single word instead. For example, with the possible exception of, we can use the word except here, just instead of writing the whole phrase, due to the fact that can be replaced with the simple word because. He totally lacked the ability to can be replaced with two words. He couldn't. Until such time as can be replaced with the word until, and for the purpose of can be replaced with the word unless. Now, hi, can you hear me? Apologies for this internet break again. Can you hear me now? Now, I was talking about giving you an example how we can be complex in terms of sentences as well. This is an example of a press release coming from a textile company in Pakistan. They tried to avoid they tried to avoid, there are certain rumors against them, so they tried to avoid them. They wrote this press release. This reads out: we categorically confirm that XYZ company has not terminated 32 of its employees. It is another a malicious story being spread and linked to the above is of the apparent attempted suicide of a young female worker. Why anyone should spread this outright lie is beyond understanding, but this just goes to show how some Western interests will stop at nothing to premeditately plan to try and cause reputational harm to XYZ. Now, if you can see, there are certain words that were not needed at all. For example, we were not required to write categorically. We did not require to write and link to the above. We did not need to write outright. We did not need to use words such as premeditately plan to try and cause reputational harm. I mean, all these sentences make it very hard for people to understand. It makes very verbose. It makes very complex for people to understand. What can be done instead? How they can write it in a better format? This can be like that: dear all, we reject the rumors that we have terminated our 32 employees, same as we reject another similar story of suicide attempt by one of our young female workers. While their real intentions are still unknown, we believe some groups will keep on trying to damage our reputation in the future as well. So you can see there are simple sentences, simple words, and that actually communicate the entire purpose of an email in a short possible manner. Am I clear to that example? If yes, just write the yes in the chat box. Okay, let's just move forward. I'm just going to be on the very last of the concept that I'm going to deliver today. It is about how you can effectively communicate the task that you want to dedicate to your subordinates. We are just going to discuss that. There are three tables of assigning tasks. If any of them is missing from your email that requires you to dedicate any task, this can lead you a disaster. This can lead you a situation where the task can become a failure. What are three W's? Who, for whom this entire message is, what, what the task has to be done, when, when is the deadline. So these are the three W's which we have to keep in our emails when we are dedicating any task. Let's just see some examples. There's an email talking about preparing a minutes of meetings. It reads something like this: dear all, I need you to do the following task for me: compile and share the minutes of meeting for multiple projects meetings we had a couple of days back. Now the reader writes all. When you write all, nobody understands who's being given this task. It actually kicks in the bystander syndrome. Syndrome says that if you are writing so many people in an email, if you are copying and if you are writing words such as all, nobody would understand that whom is being asked, whom is being given the task, and nobody would do that. So this is a bystander syndrome. Bystander syndrome. Apologies for that. It does not say what the task has to be done and when it has to be submitted. Now see the another example. It says, "Dear Carl, I need you to do the following task for me and submit it by the day and today. James and Sarah can help if necessary. Compile and share the minutes of meeting for multiple project meetings we had a couple of days ago." So now he is referring Carl. He's telling that Carl is the main person who has to deliver the entire project. He has to prepare the minutes of meeting. Sarah and James can help if necessary. And the task has also been delivered by saying that compile and share the minutes of meeting. But can you identify which W is missing in this example as well? Just write in the chat box. There's one W is still missing here. Haris says what is missing. No, Haris, what is there? He has clearly told that he has to compile and share the minutes of meeting. So what is there? Isam al Sheikh asks who do minutes. No, Isam, there's a person. Carl has been copied and he has been given this task. When is missing here? Nobody has been told when the submission deadline is, when he has to submit the work. Now see another example. There's an example referred to Carl. It says, "Carl, please update the attachment and send it back to me." Now, similar, there can be an example of this email in this way as well. Now you can see there's Carl. He's being asked, please update the slides 4 and 5 and submit it by the day end tomorrow. So there's what, there's who, and there's when. Am I clear to all of you? This is going to be the end of the entire session, which I had to deliver, the main concept that I had to deliver to you, all of you, in this session. I'm coming to an end. Now I'm opening forum for the Q&As. If you would like to ask questions, you can just ask. Yes, Sohita, he has said by the day end today. This means that he has put the put the submission deadline. Okay, it was all from my side. If you would like to add anything, if you would like to discuss anything, if you would like to ask any question, you can do that. I've just reached out to the end of the session. Thank you very much for your time today, by the way.
Hello, everyone. Do we have questions? So we can write the questions in the chat box, or you can raise hand in the participant list and we can take some questions. Apparently, it seems, Hassam, there are no questions anymore because I think you have taken a lot of questions and inputs during the session. So thank you to all of you. I think there was a little bit glitch due to the internet, but you never know when and what technology behaves on the final day. So thanks to all of you. And as Hassam said in the beginning, that we will be sharing the session recording and the content so that you can share it with your peers as well. And we will keep you engaged in the future. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.